In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, the final day of practice is here for the 2026 Panini Senior Bowl. This is the last chance that these athletes have to impress the scouts and make their mark, leave their mark on college football and start beginning preparations to take their game to the next level. And Taylen Green was out there throwing dimes like that yesterday, and we definitely saw a lot more of those dimes from him yesterday. Hello, everybody. Welcome into Southeast Sports Plus. Delighted to be with you here on this Thursday. Hopefully, everyone has had a great week so far. Hopefully, things are starting to warm up across the country. It's starting to warm up down here. So, earlier in the week, we were out at practice, and it was really cold. I think I walked outside the station on Tuesday for the first night of practice to get in my car to head over to Hancock Whitney Stadium, and I believe it was 33, 34 degrees. Well, right now, I believe it is 56 degrees. So a good 20 degree swing there, and honestly, it feels a lot warmer than that just because it's been so cold. But there's a buzz in the air yesterday, and both Alex Golesh, the new Auburn head coach, and Kalen DeBoer, the Alabama head coach, were making the rounds yesterday for day 2 of practice, and DeBoer, for both of these guys, they were greeted to a raucous ovation, and both of these coaches with being from coaching in Alabama, the locals were very excited to see both of them. But Kalen DeBoer, I mean, he's coming off his first college football appearance with the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2025, and he had this to say when he was meeting with the media yesterday.
Good to see, TK and haven't the chance to see LT yet or Cuevas, but excited about their opportunity here and obviously beyond here and down the road at the next level. So, coaching staff's out on the road. Couple weeks here and wrapping that up, so a lot of recruiting going on, and team's back at work in the weight room, and looking forward to get back with them. So they're working hard, and it's crazy how the quick turnaround happens. You play one day and you're back rolling and putting the team together for the next. So excited to get back on campus here next week and get back to work. Yeah, I think it's about production, and we know we got to be better there. Mindset and just execution, the details of the fundamentals that the guys need. So a lot of new faces that are going to be in that room. So kind of a fresh start there. Yeah, I just think that there's different avenues and directions that I was still thinking about going, and just came apparent to me what direction I was probably looking to go to as the week went on.
So Kalen DeBoer there talking about some of the changes that he made to his staff, and most notably at the O-line position. We saw a few SEC programs deciding to make a switch at the O-line coach. Earlier in the season, we saw Shane Beamer fire their offensive line coach down over at South Carolina after what seemed to be just an interesting year for the Gamecocks. We came into this season with a lot of questions around, is Rocket Sanders, him leaving, going to have as much of an impact as we thought that it would be? And it ended up having a huge impact. I believe South Carolina finished last in the SEC in rush yards per game, and we'd been talking about this Alabama team basically for the entirety of the season, and I'd been talking about how it just seemed like for some reason, no matter what was going on, Kalen DeBoer just could not get the most out of his O-line, no matter the talent. I mean, this offensive line was loaded with talent. Don't get me wrong by any means. It's just for some reason they just were not able to replicate that on the field. So without further ado, we're going to bring in the second member of our team and go out to Hancock Whitney Stadium, where Gerhard Mathangani is currently at day 3 of Senior Bowl practices. Gerhard, first, let's just start off with another weather update, because it seems like it's been getting warmer every day this week.
Yeah, what you said at the top of the show is actually perfect because it has bumped up about 20 degrees. It feels a lot warmer as well. And most of the guys, they're in their third day of practice, so they kind of understand the routine. So I think they all got their bodies to the place where they wanted it to be as far as from a warm-up standpoint. But no, you're right. It feels so much better out here. And each day has felt progressively better at this time. The nights have still been cold, but during the day it's all been good here. The vibes, I was just speaking with some of our team here, the vibes have been, it's not as energetic as the last couple of days were. And I know these guys have a busy morning leading up to practice, so sometimes it takes just a little bit to rev up. But it's been a fun last day here, last day for the national guys. And of course, I'm sure practice will pick up here in a bit because, as you mentioned, this is the last time in the one-on-one drills that we'll be able to see these guys go at it. Of course, the game will be the game, and those games is a little bit different because everybody has basically a little pitch count. It's you have limited reps there in a game. So most of the guys will be judged here on the practice tape, and so far so good here for the national squad.
So we talked a little bit about Kalen DeBoer here just a few minutes ago, but since you were boots on the ground actually in attendance for when he was making the rounds yesterday, what was the fan ovation and just the energy in the crowd like?
It's typical Alabama fans. I mean, I wasn't here at the height of Nick Saban when Nick Saban would come here because at the time Alabama would have 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that were all here representing the Tide, and that was at the height of Nick Saban, so to speak. And so I don't have anything to judge it based on, but I remember the very first year that Kalen DeBoer came in, and there was still the buzz where he just took the job. Saban had just retired a few weeks, probably 3-4 weeks before, maybe about a month before he takes the job. So there's still a lot of buzz. But then also Washington is coming off the national championship. Michael Penix Jr. is here. I think Roma Dunze was here as well that year. And that year there was so much buzz for Kalen DeBoer because it was like, what is it going to all be about? And you just saw his quarterback, who was in the national championship game a couple of weeks before the Senior Bowl. So there was a lot of buzz there in 2023. Then last year he comes in as the full-time first-year Alabama head coach, and then back again this year. And so the buzz was still there. He saw him signing autographs, and a lot of fans wanted to take pictures with him, and he's very accommodating with his time. And so the Bama buzz is still there. I don't think it's anything like what the height of Nick Saban was, but obviously Saban had a few championship rings for fans to celebrate because this game still comes on the ripple effect of the national championship because the national championship is obviously played in January. A couple weeks later, fans are still on a high for that, and so you're seeing a lot here. The IU guys have been taking a lot of, the Indiana guys, I should say, have been taking a lot of pictures with fans and stuff like that. So I do think that there is a domino effect, a knock-on effect for doing well in the regular season and doing well in the playoff, and then coming here in the Senior Bowl. So to that same point, we've seen it here with Kalen DeBoer, although it might not be the same heights that we've seen it in the past, but. Speaking of coaches, though, there are a few extra coaches that have been here. I just spoke with our photographer and reporter, Nick Johnson, who says that Clark Lee is here. Yesterday we saw Mike Elko here. We saw the Nebraska head coach, Matt Rule, here as well, too. We saw Dabo Swinney. Brent Venables has been here as well from Oklahoma. So a pretty strong contingent of college coaches here.
We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about Auburn and some of the other SEC programs in hour number 2 when you rejoin us. But coming into this week, we had known that there was going to be 4 Alabama stars that would be looking to improve their stock heading into the draft. Obviously, Jam Miller, Josh Cuevas, Tim Keenan, and LT Overton. Of those 4, who has really impressed you the most so far this week?
I would say from a team standpoint, in my opinion, because I'm going to say a name, but even though I'm going to give up an example where he wasn't that great, but I'll tell you that part in a second. Okay. I really like Josh Cuevas, and Cuevas has been insanely good for a long time now. And the end of his year at Washington and the end of his year at Alabama, you saw what the hype was. I think that he has been really good. However, I do think LT Overton has been strong as far as solidifying things. However, there is one play that I'll point back to, is the play against Jeremiah Wright. It was Auburn versus Alabama. We had that clip the other day where the Auburn guy actually won the drill. However, LT Overton has been doing well in there ever since then. So we got a chance to hear from some of those Alabama guys here during practice this past week. Take a listen.
I'm feeling good. Body's feeling good. Practices are shorter than I expected when I first got here. But, they've been efficient. They haven't worked us too hard. It's more a mental game now, just kind of seeing if we can pick up installs, stuff like that. But, I'm feeling good going into next third practice. I think mostly I just kind of embraced the unexpected, really. I wasn't thinking about transferring this many times, but, it honestly worked out for the best. And it was kind of unexpected, to say the least. And, I embraced it and I ran with it and I used the most of my opportunities, and it put me in a good position to be successful at Bama. It's meant everything. One example, when I got hurt in the middle of the season, I thought my season was over. And, first guy I talked to was Coach DeBoer. Just kind of like someone you can really go to. He's always reaching out to his players, making always like a family environment, and it's just he makes everybody feel comfortable. And I think that's what makes a great head coach and what makes Coach DeBoer such a good guy. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a all-down tight end, pretty much. They'd be getting a workhorse. It's just in my blood, how I was raised, just kind of putting in work day in and day out, and putting work in the dark that nobody's going to see. And you saw that kind of throughout the season. It paid off for me a little bit. I had a chip on my shoulder going into the 2025 season for my senior year, and I had a good one. So.
All right, so those are the Alabama guys, the Alabama contingent that was here at the Senior Bowl. And I'll tell you what, Patrick, one of the biggest things that I've learned about this game and about these players is that they all play for each other, and it's all a team bonding. I think when we came out of the NIL transfer portal, one of the biggest fears was how much will that impact a locker room? One guy's getting paid $5 million, another guy is getting paid $100,000. Would that impact camaraderie? Would that impact chemistry? Would that impact teamwork? It certainly hasn't. Just yesterday we saw Ty Simpson, who's here training at quarterback country, not here playing in the game, obviously, made the trip down and just came to support his buddies. We're seeing that from across the board, even guys that are not necessarily that are even in this game, but just training in the facility. They're training in Pensacola and made a trip down here to support their friends, to support their comrades. So that to me has been a really refreshing look here at the Senior Bowl, because like you said, we don't always have top 10 guys that are here. They usually will save themselves for whether the combine or the pro day, but we're still seeing a lot of those guys, the guys that will be picked high, like a Ty Simpson yesterday, show up for their friends and teammates.
I almost get the sense, and I don't want people to take this comparison too literally, because what we've seen from the Pro Bowl in recent years has just been a steady decline in the quality of what's going on. But it seems like the guys out there actually on the field are trying to form a bond with one another, and even guys on rival schools in the SEC. Are you starting to get that sense as well from these guys?
Absolutely. It was funny yesterday walking off the field. We saw I saw a guy from Texas A&M and Texas walking together. I saw a guy from Kentucky or Ole Miss and Tennessee kind of walking together. Texas and Texas Tech at the same time too. So whether it's classic rivalries or rivalries within the same conference, you see a lot of that here. And I think mainly because this is not necessarily this is competition within one another. However, this is 137 plus job interviews. They're all individual ones. They're all just happy to have it at the same time and using each other kind of as those data points. And so that's the reason why I do think that there is a good sense of that teamwork, the camaraderie. You're rooting for each other, but at the same time understanding that they're all competing for one of 53 roster spots, one of 52 roster spots, or one of 90 spots in camp, but understanding that all that stuff is out of their control. It's all above them. The 32 franchises will make their decisions. All they could do is play their best out here, and you get the sense that they come into practice understanding that.
Last question before we let you go. We played the little projection game, go into the shoes of a potential NFL scout. You talked about Josh Cuevas. What's your projection for him in the draft?
Honestly, I think that if he stays healthy, that's the biggest thing. That's what hampered him at Alabama. But if you take his last maybe 3 to 4 games of production towards the end of last year, he really showed you who he can be. And that tight end position right now is so crucial. Just about every successful team has one, if not two, very productive tight ends as a pass catcher and a guy that can help run block as well. I think he's kind of shown both more about the pass catching than the run blocking. But if you just take a look at his game tape, he looks really good. You can tell he's an NFL body. So I do think that he can put himself end of that second day. If not, he would be a steal in the third day for anything that gets him. But I do think the one question about him will be about the injuries, because he suffered them this year. It hurt him a little bit this year, but if he shows at the back end that it doesn't bother him, I think he'll be completely fine. So I'm projecting day 2. If I'm a GM, if I'm picking a team, I don't let that guy slide out of the third or fourth round.
Without a doubt. GM Gerhard joining us from Hancock Whitney Stadium. Final day of practices here at the Senior Bowl. Gerhard will be back in approximately just under 1 hour to talk more about the Senior Bowl and other guys in and around the SEC. Gerhard, we'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you then.
G-Money joining us from Hancock Whitney Stadium as I mentioned, the last day of Senior Bowl practice wraps up and before the game on Saturday. Coming up next, we're going to go out to Lexington, Kentucky, talk about this Kentucky basketball team who looked like they had it figured out until they didn't against Vanderbilt. We'll check in with Colby Wilson next. Welcome back into Thursday's edition of Southeast Sports Plus. Patrick Walsh joining you on this fine Thursday. And we're going to head out to Lexington, Kentucky and check in with Colby Wilson. Colby, I think the last time we talked with you, this Kentucky team was really starting to figure some things out. They went on a 5-game win streak, but ended up dropping this one to Vanderbilt on Tuesday. What were your main takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, it looked like this team was on the up and up, a 5-game winning streak. Big Blue Nation, please, the energy completely different here in Lexington. And then they go to Vandy, and it looks like just back to where they were against that game against Missouri. I mean, what you thought was not an issue anymore, which was the effort, now looked like another problem. Just all around, not good. Defensively, offensively. I mean, there was certain plays that even it was like, are we okay? Like there was one where Malachi inbounded the ball to Otega, and then Otega walked back out of bounds, and then that was a turnover. So just little things like that. I think Big Blue Nation's back to like what is going on. But I think most importantly, it's the effort that people are like, where did that go?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's not even so much the fact that you went down by 20 at halftime, because obviously the team had proven in the recent games that they could overcome basically any deficit. But I think at some point you've got to stop digging yourself this hole to start the game, because you can't just rely on it every game, right?
Right. And, you know, Mark Pope has said some things in his pressers that people don't fully agree with in terms of like, we're a second half team. We go into halftime still confident because this is what we can do. And, you know, that only works for so long, because you're going to go out against Vanderbilt and against good teams. Vanderbilt is a good team, and they're not going to allow you to do that. And so also, I don't think that's what you want the DNA of your team to be, as a second half team where you go down 20-25 in the first half and come back out and have to always dig yourself out of that hole. I don't think that's feasible every single game. And so I think that's a DNA they wore fairly well, but I think they need to slowly shake that off, because as they go down this next stretch of games that's brutal, that's not going to work.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like at the beginning of the season, we were talking about Otega Oweh not really playing up to par, up to the preseason SEC Player of the Year. But I feel like, in my opinion, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like now it's shifting more away from the guards, but rather the bigs. It seems like the bigs aren't really pulling their weight. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I would say that's very fair. Obviously, you think about bigs on this team and who's been productive so far this season. That's Malachi Marino, the freshman, just right out of here in Georgetown. But I think there was a comment made after this last game in terms of him on the glass, and he's been great on the glass so far this season, but he made a comment saying he kind of felt like Pope was saying he might feel like he's the only one trying to get those rebounds, and that it needs to be more of a collective group effort. But other than Malachi, it's hard to say any big that's really just consistently stepped up each game.
We heard from Mark Pope after the game. Let's take a listen.
I think we sped ourselves up. We weren't functioning at a high level offensively in the sense of, actually, I thought we got really good, like we made really good decisions until the finish of a play. When you look at the film, like, I actually like that, I like this, there was so much we liked. And sometimes that happens, man, where we just didn't finish, and then we started to compound our own problems. So I think 5 minutes left, the score's 7-4, and I'm sorry, 5 minutes into the first half, it's 15:05 or whatever. It's 7-4, and our ball in transition. And so all the stuff that happened in the first 5 minutes that hadn't felt great, we'd managed to kind of, and we weren't, we gave up a couple of transition baskets, but otherwise we were pretty solid defensively. But I think it just started to jump on our backs a little bit, and then we turned the ball over consecutively 4 out of 5 possessions, and each one was you could feel the temperature a little bit until the third turnover was inexplicably something we've never done since the first day we started in the summer, and so we kind of it was a little bit of a self-imposed deal. Credit to Vanderbilt for playing hard and keeping the pace, but I think we kind of got in our own way a little bit.
So Mark Pope kind of talking about how they got in their own way and Vanderbilt was able to speed them up a little bit in the game. I want to jump ship to basically a big picture question. We heard Curt Cignetti talk after winning the national championship that, basically him being able to win there at Indiana, now it can open up for some of the funding from these donors. I mean, Mark Cuban has basically added his funding to the Indiana program. Are you a little bit concerned now seeing that Kentucky has this $22 million roster? They have already hit their 7th loss of the season, that, these donors are going to be a little bit hesitant moving forward, dishing out so much money to this team?
I feel like that is just more of a surface level concern. Mm-hmm. I think obviously donors are going to rethink, okay, how much money is this program that we want to feed into? But at the end of the day, like, Kentucky is this program, it's so historic. There's so much pride that goes into Kentucky basketball that I can't ever imagine these donors that have been supportive of this program for all these years just kind of throwing in the towel. Like, they wear that with so much pride. I don't think they ever want to see Kentucky like at the bottom where they're kind of headed right now. And so I really don't think that's a significant issue because, I mean, these donors want to see their team at the top. And so whatever they have to do that and fix the issue they're seeing right now, I think that they would be willing to do, in my opinion.
Well, let's turn our attention to this weekend's game because, it's just another game. There's definitely no meaning to this game by any means. It's definitely not John Calipari's second time going up against the Kentucky Wildcats. What has the emotion been in Lexington leading up to this game this weekend?
That's been a big question that everyone asked, but truly, like you said, it really is just another game. Wow. I do think that ship has sailed in terms of the emotion. I think, Cal, after that Oklahoma win, someone asked him, of course, about the game, and he said, it's just another game. And to be fair, last year he was walking into Rupp for the first time. His team was 1-6, and now he's walking in with the second best team in the SEC right now. So really, he has nothing to worry about. But I think ultimately, that the emotion in terms of Cal and him leaving, I think that is all sailed. And so I really do feel like both of these teams just go into it like it's another game. Yeah, it's Cal, but, we're going to win and do our thing. So I don't really think there's a whole lot of emotion in terms of last year.
You teed it up perfectly. Let's listen to Coach Cal.
I don't think so. But what I would say, it's the next game. And we're in a different position. We kind of flipped the switch. Like last year, we were like, what were we when we went to play them? And then we got them pretty good. But we were 1-6. Somebody said it was. I didn't care who it was. We needed to beat somebody. And now, the only significance of the game to me is we need to keep winning because let's stay pace with what's going on and people around us. And they're playing great. Mark Pope's doing a great job. He is. Look, for them to struggle and then to him to get him going, he's the right guy for that job.
Coach Cal taking a little dig at Mark Pope there, saying, oh, yeah, he's doing a great job. Do you think that's just gamesmanship, or do you think he's being actually serious about it?
I think Cal's a solid dude. I really do think there was no jabs at that. And
no Lane Kiffinisms?
No, I don't think any Lane Kiffinism. And to be fair, if anyone knows how hard this job is here, it's Cal. So I think the sympathy coming from him has to be at an all-time high.
Real quick before we let you go, let's flip over to the women's side. And it's been a little bit of a free fall here, dropping 3 in a row. What has been your big takeaway during this little skid that they're on?
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of like Pope in the men's team, it's the injuries, and they don't have as many, but Tiani Key, losing her was huge. And honestly, after they lost her, things kind of went downhill because, Kenny Brooks has said after games, look, we're just gassed. I mean, their rotation has been shortened because of Tiani, and then you have girls trying to step in that haven't gotten big minutes throughout the course of the beginning of the season. And so I think, just fitness-wise and just they're staying close in games, so you have to have players that can close games, and when they're playing almost all of the game, that gets hard at the end. So I think he did say they had a nice week off, so he's saying he just wants them to maintain their confidence as they go and play Arkansas on Sunday.
Got a prediction? Or do you – I can't remember. Do you do predictions or no?
I told you guys I'm horrible at predictions, but I am predicting a Wildcats win. I think they will get it done against Arkansas.
On both fronts or just the –
Ooh. That was more so for the women's. The men's, I have no more predictions anymore. I think you'll just find yourself in a hole regardless of what you're predicting for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's heading to that point. But Colby, right. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it, and stay warm up there.
Absolutely, always great joining you guys. Thank you.
Colby Wilson out of Lexington, Kentucky, as the Wildcats gear up for Arkansas on the men's and the women's side. Coming up next, we go up to Birmingham and we talk about the latest with Alabama forward Charles Bediako. We join Scott Griffin is joining us next. That and more after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back into Southeast Sports Plus. Delighted to be with you here on this Thursday as we head up to Birmingham and check in with Scott Griffin. Scott, the Tide finally get their first win with Charles Bediako playing, and the TRO gets extended an additional 10 days. First, let's talk about this game. What did you make from the win over Missouri?
They came out and they took it to them, man. They were very motivated, obviously. They had not played well at home. They had dropped 3. That's the most they've ever dropped in a season under Nate Oates, and they've already done that, and we're not even to February. So they've got to hold home court. They were motivated. I think they changed some things in practice. They changed approach. Nate Oates, as you heard, said, guys, you got to, have some mandatory meetings and get involved in the scout report. Obviously, there was some slippage there at some point during the middle of the year, maybe with injuries and such, and personnel. I've started so many different lineups. Right. I think 15 or 16 so far on the year. So it's hard to get that continuity, but they still shouldn't lose at home. Let's be honest. That's not excuses. So they were just dialed in, man. Now, can you stack games like that? That's obviously the key.
So I think when I was watching the Tennessee game, the one thing that really stood out to me was it seemed like the offense completely changed their mentality. And instead of being a three-point shooting team, it almost felt like it, in my opinion, when you get Charles Bediako in and the whole situation that unfolds around him, you're almost like, okay, we got him, so we should use him. And it just seemed like they attacked the paint more than they had in the past. What was the difference between the Tennessee game and the Missouri game?
And I think you're right. I think they did attack it with Bediako. They had 4 or 5 lobs to him, right? Something like that. And he ended with 12, 13 points. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was close to a career high, and he had double figures again against Missouri. So they need to do that. Obviously, you got to be more than a three-point shooting team, and they haven't had an inside presence. And even Aiden Sherrill, because they started Bediako, right, against Missouri. So you started Sherrill, who's there's a look at him eating the rim. Sherrill was starting at 4, and he was hitting a couple of threes. He's still too soft, in my opinion, because he only grabbed 1 rebound against Missouri. That was bad. And Bediako and Sherrill against Tennessee combined, 2 7-footers, had a combined 7 rebounds. That's not going to cut it.
Right.
If you hit some shots and you're going to win, but in a difficult, tough game, that's not going to cut it. But to your point, yes, they're going inside more. Bediako's there. And that's about the only inside presence. They've got to drive the ball more, though, with their guards as well. They got to get to the free throw line. That's always a great thing to do in basketball if you're not hitting shots or if you're not scoring.
Just look at what Auburn did last night.
Yeah, right. Driving it fouled, right? Auburn had, 28 free throws
28
in the second half. So, so just crazy. So driving it fouled and, create. So, yes, I think there is a more conscious effort, I guess the best way to put it, getting the ball inside a little bit.
You teed that up perfectly about Charles Bediako and the impact that he has had on Aiden Sherrill. Let's take a listen to Nate Oates.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden's been playing really well. Before Charles came, I think it does allow him to step out, maybe, play more like a 4, like more threes. He had the nice drive at the top of the key today. I'm not sure if that was when Charles was in or out. I can't remember for sure, but he for sure gets a little more comfortable playing on the perimeter because he started at the 4 tonight. So I don't know how many minutes they ended up playing together. They started both halves together, and then we tried to keep at least one of them in. We got Noah 5 minutes when I think they were both on the bench. So they weren't in there a ton together, but I do think they're more than capable of playing together. And the Florida game, they've got real bigs that, we may have to match those two in a lot more than, they may both have to play more than 22 and 18 minutes tonight. So but I do think, but Aiden hit the 1-3, but he really hit the second one with his foot on the line. He should have been 2 for 4.
So, obviously, you had talked about how Aiden Terrell gets these opportunities now with taking three-pointers, and that's kind of what Nate Oates was talking about there. You talked also about how it seemed like they came out motivated for this game, and the game that they've got coming up next, obviously Todd Golden has made some comments about the whole Charles Bediako situation, saying we'll just beat him anyways. Would you expect the Tide to come out pretty motivated for this one as well?
I would hope so. I mean, I don't know what else that kind of questions you, right? It's at Florida, so it's easy for Todd to talk pretty big there, but he lost to Auburn, at Florida. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Obviously, Bediako helps them. Florida's got a lot of very active post players. They can defend, they can rebound. So they have got to be at their best. They really need Amari Allen back for that. I don't know if he's going to be back technically for that game. He should be close. I don't even know if they've announced it yet, but he's been out right now. But it's weird that you say you need a 6'7" guy who's your best rebounder when you got 2 7-footers, but that's the way it is right now. So, that's I don't know what else you'd need to be motivated than the head coach of the other team saying that. It should get them fired up.
I mean, if you can't get motivated for that, why are you even playing college basketball?
I mean, there's no reason.
You shouldn't need that. Speaking of one of their bigs, talking about Alabama, we've had some new developments in the whole Charles Bediako case. What can you tell us since the last time that we talked with you last week?
Well, yesterday the judge recused himself. The NCAA got involved and wanted him to recuse himself, and he did. He is a donor to the university. He has donated in the past. I thought it was very interesting, though, that they recused him, and then they gave the case to Judge Pruitt, who is also the judge that is in charge of the Darius Miles murder case. It's very wild. So now he's got the Charles Bediako case, and now the Darius Miles murder case, which keeps going. And by the way, the previous judge who recused himself, his wife is the defense attorney for Darius Miles. So it's this intriguing web of whatever that is down here in Tuscaloosa. But I thought it was good that he recused himself. He probably should have recused himself before. It's a bad look. But again, that doesn't, what I keep trying to tell people, that doesn't stop the fact that Nate Oates' point, and he was backed by Coach K, that European players play professional basketball, come here, and it's not a problem. Americans can't do that. So I understand that argument. It doesn't look good. I'm not excited about it. It doesn't make me feel good. But that is a valid argument. So, this thing's got to be cleared up. But we'll see what happens with when this thing gets to court.
So we've already seen one thing that the NCAA is pushing for being successful, in that the judge did end up recusing himself. Another thing that I believe we talked with you last week about that was gaining momentum at the time was the potential for games that Charles Bediako plays in to be vacated if Alabama wins. Now that there is an actual Alabama win after the Tennessee loss, do you think that if Charles Bediako loses this case, that this game could be vacated?
I guess. I don't know. I don't know if they would leave it alone. That doesn't sound right either, right? Or if they just say, well, he got a restraining order, got to stay necessarily, or for lack of a better term, and maybe we'll just leave that alone. But he can't play anymore, and they're not going to worry about going to cancel the others. I don't think that's the case. And again, you've got all this precedent, which is what really law is in many cases, is precedent of the 3 or 4 other guys that are still playing for their teams that came out of professional leagues this year, obviously. So, that would upset the apple cart for them as well. And I haven't heard anything about their cases where anybody's gone back to say, well, you're going to have to, vacate those wins to be considered for March Madness. For some reason, and that's kind of surprising too, Patrick, that for some reason this one's gotten a lot of attention, I guess, for lack of a better word, more so than the others to me, because it just seems bigger. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's Alabama's success the last few years or what, but it is one that everybody's going to notice. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, you also brought up the tournament, and we heard from Mark Pope a few weeks ago about when he was asked about the whole situation, and he said, well, the NCAA is also they've got a committee that decides who ends up making the tournament and who ends up missing the tournament. So I guess I asked you about, do you think that they'll vacate these wins? But on the flip side, do you think this could have a negative impact on their chances of not only making the tournament, but also their seeding wise?
Well, certainly if they vacate the wins, their seeding would go down. I don't know. Here's the facts, though.
Yep.
Greg Byrne, the Alabama athletic director, is on the selection committee. Usually if you're on it. Now, obviously, he's got to, since we're using the word recuse, he's got to recuse himself from the meeting room once selection day happens. But he's still on the committee, let's be honest. And Samford University, another local school here, Martin Newton is the head of the selection committee. So he lives here in Birmingham, and he's right here at Samford. So he's going to do the right thing. I'm not insinuating he's going to help Alabama at all, but I think it would be very difficult for those two connections to lower Alabama more than they need to, depending on what happens. I really don't see any of that happening. But that's just my gut and guess. That's not, I don't know anything more than anybody else, but I don't see them having to give up wins and everything. And I think Bediako will probably play the rest of the year, I guess.
Yeah.
Everybody else is.
Yeah. I mean,
so
we'll
see.
We talk about, you did talk about precedent, and I feel like if they were to vacate these wins and say, nah, you can't play in the tournament, that would be quite the precedent and probably one of the stronger precedents. Let's flip over to the women's side, and they bounced back with a really nice win against Mississippi State, mainly in that fourth quarter. What were your main takeaways from that win?
Well, they've got some outside shooting. Coach Curry's done a nice job there, and they've got enough inside presence, as you see right there, to make a difference. You know, they had a big win over number 6 Kentucky, right, a couple of weeks ago, and we're rolling along. They have had a couple losses since. So they've gotten in league play, but normally that's where things even out anyway. So I don't know what their league record is off the top of my head, but it's probably close to 500. Yeah. And, you know, every team's pretty competitive. So they've got enough different players to do well. Right. And they don't have one person, Weatherly or anybody else, that has to be on. They can win games in a few different ways. So I think they're pretty good, and they're making strides to get better and better and better in an ever-changing SEC. But, you know, we see Oklahoma beat South Carolina the other day at home. So it's the strength of the SEC to see these teams get better. Now, I don't think they're a top 10 team or anything by that stretch, but, you know, they're a legit top 25 team.
So the SEC on the women's side set a record for 10 teams in the top 25 in the most recent poll. And when you want to talk about the gauntlet that the SEC actually is on the women's side, I believe, yes, they play 4 ranked teams out of their next 5. Looking at these ranked teams, do you think there's of these games, which ones could you see, you know, them pulling off the upset, so to speak, in?
For Alabama to pull off the upset?
Yes, for Alabama.
Boy, LSU's really good. I wouldn't think they would win that game there with Mulkey. Possibly Georgia. You know, then they don't even get to rest when they're home, right? With Ole Miss, and then back on the road at A&M. So I would think they would want to split on the road, even though there's 3 there. If they could get the Georgia game, I think they're probably guaranteed probably a 3-2 there. But, you know, Oklahoma, LSU will be very difficult roads, even though Oklahoma is at home. So probably 3-2 is their best hope in that one. But you never know. They beat Kentucky, like we said, at number 6. So,
and you just never know. It feels like
you never know. That's why they play them.
Yes,
That's right.
that is why we don't just, play the hypothetical world.
Yeah.
One more thing before we let you go. We are fast approaching baseball season. I believe
Yes.
2 weeks from tomorrow is the first series weekend. And
Wow.
yeah,
Crazy.
I know. And I don't remember who Alabama plays off the top of my head, but just a general overlook of what you expect from this team this year.
Well, they've got LeBron, who many say is definite top 10 pick at shortstop and might be the number 1 pick in the draft. A lot of people say he's very good. He's athletic as all get out. He can steal bases. He's got gap power, a few home runs. He hits for average. He's just an outstanding player that should get better and better and better. Alabama, they've got to get the pitching right. And I think they have it. They have the talent, but I think it's unproven right now. So we got to kind of wait and see what's going on with them. They've got some guys, but they're going to have other guys, and there's LeBron there that come through for them. But LeBron's such a freak there, and I think he elevates the rest of his team as opposed to detracts from that. So definitely Alabama is far better in baseball than they were 2 years ago. And so they should get better and more confident, and we'll see what happens. That was a gaudy record you just put up there, 41-18. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, they've got a chance to be better, but as usual, injuries are a concern and all those things for every team. Do you have enough arms to last in college baseball?
1999 was the last time they made it to Omaha. Is this the year that it ends?
Could be.
Could be.
Could be. They have the special player with LeBron, and they've got other really good players. If that pitching comes through and the pen comes through, it might be. It's been a while. They used to go, not often, but often for them. But it's been a while. We'll see what happens. But again, it's the SEC, right?
Right.
If you make it to the tournament and win one or two, you've got a really great year. It just doesn't feel like it. But the SEC is going to be outstanding. It's going to be interesting to see what Tennessee does since
with Nylander.
Their guy left, right?
Yeah,
so
Vitella left.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
I believe the last team not from the SEC to win the national championship was Virginia, and that feels like forever ago. So
yeah, and here's how crazy this is. It just dawned on me with us talking. Mississippi State's coach wins a championship. Many said it was with previous coaches' players.
Right.
Has some bad years for them and gets fired. Yeah. The guy was fired and won a national championship. Sounds like Alabama football or something. So SEC baseball is pretty big and pretty it's no different than any other sport. On the expectations.
No question. Scott, thank you for joining us today, breaking down the whole Charles Bediako situation and Tide women's basketball and baseball. Take care, man.
All right, PW. Thanks, man.
Scott Griffin joining us out of Birmingham. Coming up next, we wrap up our number 1. Stay with us. Closing up our number 1 here on this Thursday edition of Southeast Sports Plus. Again, hopefully everyone is having a great day. Usually we like to do these on Tuesday or Wednesday, but with the Senior Bowl this week, we're gonna do this on a Thursday. It is time for one of my personal favorite segments, and that is Overreaction. So it's just me today. G will be joining us in actually just a few minutes from Hancock Whitney Stadium in hour number 2, talking about the Senior Bowl. But here are my Week 5 SEC men's basketball overreactions. And some of these might not be unreal takes. I'm kind of second-guessing myself with that second line. But first one, this is probably not unreal. I honestly think Kentucky will miss the NCAA tournament in year 2 under Mark Pope. Last year, we saw that Kansas had the most expensive roster in college basketball. I believe it was reported to be right around $20 million. And Hunter Dickinson was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. Everyone thought that Kansas was going to go back to the Final Four. They were going to win another national title under Bill Self. I just don't, and it just didn't end up working out. And I don't see this quite working out for Mark Pope. I feel like that at this point, there are too many weaknesses and the team isn't fully bought in. Now, is that a Mark Pope problem? I don't know. I'm not in that locker room, and I'm just not around the program to really be able to get a good sense of it. But I think Kentucky might actually miss the tournament. Tennessee is going to go on a run here. They've got 2 straight wins. They've got a nice win over Alabama. They gutted out a close one against Georgia last night. We'll talk about that in an hour or two. And what Jacoby Gillespie has been able to do. And Nate Amon, it seems like he's starting to find his groove as well. And here's the unreal take. I could honestly see Florida going back to the Final Four. And I know just a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, I said that Florida might actually miss the tournament, I believe. Not anymore. Because what they did to South Carolina last night, I don't think I personally have ever seen a team lose quite like that. But, I mean, Florida has just been on an absolute roll. Hour number 2 of Southeast Sports Plus next.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Gerhard Mathangani.
Welcome into hour 2 of this Thursday edition of Southeast Sports Plus. The final day of Senior Bowl practice is continuing with the national team currently on the field. And final day of practice here before the big game on Saturday. Hello, everybody. Hour 2 of Southeast Sports Plus continues. And without further ado, let's go out to Hancock Whitney Stadium and check in with Gerhard Mathangani. Gerhard, how are we looking right now?
Things have looked good here so far. Obviously, you can't beat the weather. The weather's been absolutely amazing, but practice has been lively. Practice has been really spirited. They just did a red zone drill here just moments ago here with the national team. It's really competitive. You can tell the defensive guys especially. I don't know if they considered it yesterday a loss, but the defensive guys have kind of been more at it. They had a scoop and score fumble earlier, then a goal line stand here a moment ago. We were on the defensive sideline, and they were absolutely just elated by it. But that's one of the things we talked about yesterday about this defensive line. A really really talented group going up against a really good offensive line. That's the matchup I want to see on Saturday when it's the American versus the National, because the American League, the American team's offensive line has been incredible, and that's probably the reason why they've been super excited to get those wins up front, especially what we saw there on the goal line stand there and on the pick six.
Was it any SEC guys that made the goal line stand, or was it just who made the goal line stand?
It was kind of a massive humanity, to be honest with you. Okay. They tried to run it right in the A gap, and you had Lee Hunter was right in there, Jacob Rodriguez, the two Texas Tech guys were right in that mix. But it was just kind of a little bit everybody. And so the O line as of right now, from what I can tell, this O line group as a whole, I'm just talking big picture here, as a whole, looks a lot bigger than the American team offensive line. So you're starting to see those battles going on in the trenches there.
So let's go ahead and I know this is an SEC show, but we're located here in Mobile, Alabama, and obviously where the Senior Bowl is going to be played this year is at Hancock-Whitney Stadium, home of the South Alabama Jags. Devin Voisin, obviously he was pretty hyped about being able to play in this game, obviously in his home stadium. What did you make of his presence yesterday? I know he had a nice day out there.
Yeah, he did, and I think that one of the unique things about being a South Alabama player is you've seen this game from kind of afar. Like your locker room is not that far away from here. You eat in the same places that they eat. You come out of the same town that you come out of. These guys come out of. So I'm sure that there is a desire for all players who are very productive as South Alabama players to come in and play in this game. And they've had a nice history of guys that have come in to play in this game and then gone on to productive careers in the NFL. Devin Voisin is the same way. It was a unique situation because Devin Voisin came in with his twin brother, Jaden, but Jaden last year decided to enter the NFL draft, and Devin had one more year of eligibility because of an injury. So he took advantage of it. This past year, a little more than 70 catches and then 4 touchdowns on the season so far this year. And he got an opportunity to play in the game, and he's really made the most of it. He's a Gulf Coast native out of Crestview, Florida, so we've been able to follow his career for a long time. But you know, when the Senior Bowl committee gives the invitation to South Alabama guys, it's kind of twofold. Number one, it's congratulations on your production, but also guys that can produce at the next level. And we've seen that. Guys like Jalen Tolbert have come in and produced at the next level. He's playing right now with the Dallas Cowboys. A guy like Jamal Pritchett on the Jets team, Jets practice team as of right now. So there's a bunch of guys who have come into this game, into this Senior Bowl, that took advantage of their opportunity and landed with an NFL team.
I think I asked you in hour number 1 about Josh Cuevas and if he is one of those guys that, you know, some teams might just miss on. Do you think Devin Voisin could be, you know, that sneaky good pick that could end up developing into a pretty good wide receiver 1 or 2?
I absolutely do. But the thing about Voisin is that his skill set is multiple because he can play special teams. He's a punt returner and kickoff returner. He did that at South. He's done that a lot here. And he's a good wide receiver, whether it's wide receiver 2 or 3. He's an undersized guy, and everybody knows that. But he catches almost everything that comes his direction. That's the biggest thing about him, is that he's sure-handed, and most guys want that on the punt returns and kickoff return teams especially, and then be able to move with the ball after that. I think the biggest questions with him will always be health, of course, but he kind of proved everybody wrong this past year, stayed healthy the entire season. You just cut on the film from the Tulane game, had an excellent game then against a bunch of guys that will be pros coming up next year. And what he did at South in the previous 2 years with his brother here, I think you saw it there on tape. Now he's been able to put it together here, kind of going side by side with the guys from LSU and other places as well. So I think Devin Voisin will be one of those sleeper guys. Does he get drafted? I'm not sure, but I do think you land him in a camp, he will do his best to find his way onto an NFL roster. A lot of times, even if it's not the team that you go to camp with, they might put you on waivers, but it could be another team that signs you as well, just depending on their needs. And because he checks multiple boxes, that's the reason why I do think he does have a home in the NFL.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Patriots fan, but wasn't Julian Edelman an undrafted pick, free agent?
That's exactly right. It used to be, Patrick, where those guys were kind of like they were sleepers, but then once they got to a certain franchise that knew how to utilize that skill set, that's when they became all-stars, Pro Bowlers, and knocking on the door of the NFL Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Julian Edelman is exactly the kind of perfect comp that I would think to a guy like Devin Boyson. Not necessarily the biggest guy, but a guy that the quarterback can trust because he's going to run the right route every single time, all the time. He's one of the smartest guys. I got a chance to talk to Kane Womack, his former head coach at South Alabama, and that's one of the things he mentioned. We were talking just off camera. We weren't even on camera, on record. He's like, I said, what does Devin Boyson bring? He said, it's one of the smartest people I know, smartest people in football that I know. He understands coverages. He understands blocking schemes. So because he is so knowledgeable, I think in a time far away from now, 20 years from now, he will be coaching because he just knows football that well. He's able to impart that on his guys at South Alabama, and he's had a big impact here on the Senior Bowl as well. And he's a vocal leader as well. He's not pushy, but he's a vocal leader. So even though he's playing with guys that played on the Power 4 level, he's not afraid to let his opinions be known.
Yeah, I know you guys got a chance to catch up with him yesterday and take a close look at the background because an LSU wide receiver in Marion Brown wanted to play fun with Devin Boyson. Take a listen.
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I'm blessed to be out here. It's not an unfamiliar environment for me. I get to compete with the guys in the room. I mean, every single one of them are excellent players. Getting to learn from each and everything they do. Hey, especially this guy, man. But yeah, just getting to learn from guys like that just. They perfected their craft. I'm a student in the game, so I'm going to continue to do that with them. That I don't regret anything. I'm glad everything that happened to me happened because everything that led up, to this moment, happened for a reason. I thank God. I thank my family. And, I'm just blessed, to be back at home, competing with the guys. Oh, 100%, especially with this being, in my home stadium. I've had the privilege every year to come and watch them. So everything that we're doing right now, I've seen for the last 4 years. Starting with Jalen Tolbert, then Jalen Wayne, Carter Bradley, Jamal Pritchett, and then Colin Lacey's here too. I don't get to practice with them, but those are guys that that I've also learned from, and just blessed to see them.
So I know we talked about Michael Taft yesterday on Texas, flipping back over to the SEC. But what has impressed you about Malik Muhammad, also another Texas defensive back?
His closing speed is absolutely unreal. Like he just closes on the football. He's got a nose for the football. He likes to tackle. I think a lot of corners at times you're either a physical corner or you're not a physical corner. People harken back to guys like Deion Sanders and company that didn't necessarily like the contact. He's not that way. He likes it. He wants to get in there, get physical. His closing speed is absolutely outstanding. He's a long, lanky guy, and with those corners, a lot of times you'll talk to scouts. And one of the things I ask the scouts, because I don't have an eye for this, they do. One of the things I ask them is as far as like the body measurements, like what do you like on a corner? They like long arms. They don't have to be the tallest guy, but if you can affect the football with those long arms, it makes you way more advantageous to be able to play against those bigger guys. So even if you're not the tallest guy in the world, you're still able to measure up, and especially if you can high point the ball and jump. So yes, I think he's got all the physical attributes of exactly what you want out of a corner, and then you add on top of that physicality that he has, and I think that a lot of that has been bred from his days at Texas and playing with guys like Michael Taft and others who are very physical corners. And he understands he needed that. He needed that to be a part of his game. I think it was coming out of high school. He has really shown it here, and it's been really fun to watch him kind of stack good reps on top of one another, whether it's the one-on-one drills with the wide receivers or in the team perspective. He's getting a really good taste of it. He saw it last year, of course, because Texas had a very tough schedule. He saw some of the best some of the best wide receivers in all of football. He saw Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M and several others. And so there's he's battle tested in a lot of ways, and now he's able to show those tangible tactical skills that you need as a corner.
We also got a chance to hear from him. Let's take a listen.
This is big for the both of us. I mean, we're trying to raise our draft stock, trying to showcase our skill, our communication, our technique, just our all-around game to the NFL scouts and to the NFL team. So this is huge for us. Just technique, my communication skills, playing the game within the game, hip fluidity, being instinctual and being twitchy and finishing on the ball. I mean, the biggest one was always character. I mean, you could be the best player on the field on any team, any player, you could be the best player. But if you don't have character, I mean, you're wasting talent. So I would just say character, being organized, being structured, and treating people how you want to be treated. His ceiling is super high. I mean, he's a super humble guy. He never is big-headed. I mean, he acts like a regular dude, a guy, a film junkie. I mean, he's always working on his craft. He acts like a regular dude.
All right, so let's flip over to Auburn because, you know, there's been a little bit of an interesting situation that's starting to develop. Obviously, Bo Nix, he played in the Senior Bowl back in 2024, but he underwent ankle surgery and ended up missing the AFC Championship game. I'm going to play the sound of and it seems like there's a little bit of growing animosity here between Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Let's take a listen.
And it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when.
Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good.
He said he had one in high school, and then he said he had one at Auburn. And I said, I didn't realize that. I said, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have drafted you.
I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, but because I don't, you know, he doesn't really even know that.
So it's just, it's a crazy situation because it almost feels like Sean Payton is kind of making a joke, saying, you know, well, if I knew he had all of those surgeries in high school and college, then I wouldn't have drafted him. But at the same time, it seems like Bo Nix was like, you know, why is it his place to say how many surgeries do you have? Do you think that Sean Payton was kind of overstepping here and basically airing out some things that he shouldn't have?
It felt a little out of line. I really did. I think when Sean Payton, one of the things that you like about him is that he's very honest and very upfront, and he's like that about everything. He was like that about Russell Wilson, if you remember back in the day. I do think that there's multiple games being played here when he's talking about Bo Nix and his injury status and whatnot. I think number one, he was obviously trying to answer the question about Bo Nix and about his health, but also keep in mind that Bo Nix is probably soon, maybe not this year, maybe next year, and if not the year after that, going to start talking about renegotiating and getting that second contract, getting off that rookie deal. Was this probably parts of the first bricks being laid so he doesn't have to sign for as much money? Maybe. I don't know. I'm hypotheticalizing here. I just think that there is a time and a place for everything. And to talk about a player's injury when that's his livelihood, and when playing football is his livelihood, knowing that all that stuff can be used against him in negotiations, yeah, I did feel it was a little out of line for Sean Payton. At the same time, too, he was actually being honest. He was like, hey, look, I might not have picked him up if I had known all these things. But another part of this too, Patrick, is that I don't think for a second that he didn't know about this, at least a little bit about this. How do you not know how many he's had? They've had all kinds of vetting processes, and so I do think a little bit of this might still be stemming from the frustrations of what happened on Sunday. And I do think coaches a lot of times, and I am going to project here just a little bit. Okay. I do think coaches a lot of times, when their gamesmanship has been called into question, whether it's a fourth down call or whatever, a lot of times what they end up doing is they bottle in that frustration, and it comes out in different outlets. And I think this is one of the outlets that it came out in, and trying to distance himself away from Bo Nix and trying to use the injury as some sort of buffer there. I thought it was weird. I thought it was interesting. I wonder if later on he'll come out and try to walk it back a little bit. But I'm kind of on Bo Nix's side here. I don't think that was his place to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the other ways that he vented his frustrations was, in my opinion, the random firing of Joe Lombardi. I feel like that one was just, it didn't really make any sense to me, because Sean Payton is kind of the guy that has the final say on like which plays are called. And to fire a guy because you scored 7 points in an elimination game with a backup quarterback that hadn't made a start in 2 years, which I just think that's crazy. But when you talk about this whole situation, are you a little concerned that there's going to be some animosity growing here, and that there could be a strain in the relationship between head coach and quarterback?
I think if this happened in the regular season or in the middle of the year, we might get that because they have to be with each other all the time. Right. I do think because it happened in the offseason, they will physically be away from one another for a really long time. That lets it marinate. That gives it some time to really cool off. So I don't think it bleeds into next season. Now, if Sean Payton keeps running his mouth about it, then that's one thing. But if he, in my opinion, what he should do, and I think what he will do, is not mention it anymore, not talk about it, let Bo Nix not talk about it, and this could be settled over one dinner in Denver, and saying, hey, look, let's just not talk about it, and for everything else that we talk about from a injury standpoint, let's just be on the same page. That is a way for it to not rise up to anything contentious. However, if it's like the Russell Wilson thing, where in Russell Wilson's case, you saw how those two got very sideways very quickly. He came in and said, if Russell Wilson's not going to have an office here and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it escalates to that, because I do think they need one another, and I do think that a guy like Bo Nix does need a guy like Sean Payton to make him better. I do think this has a chance to defrost a little bit, so to speak, mainly because we're in the off season and we won't have that time to talk about it.
Broncos country, let's ride. You just don't want to hear that ever again from obviously any quarterback. One more thing before we let you go. We like to do predictions. Since we won't get to hear from you before the game on Saturday, who is going to be the biggest standout in your opinion, stats-wise, and just passing the eye test in this game?
Interesting question. I really like it. I'm just taking his game tape from what I saw when he was in college, and then using that and pairing that up against what I've seen here in the 2 days so far. About to see him in the third day here at Hancock Whitney Stadium. I think Taylor Green's going to have a really, really, really good bump up from a draft stock perspective. He has all the physical tangibles, all the physical attributes, so to speak. But then you pair that with the fact that he can literally make every throw, and he was very productive at his highest when he was at Arkansas. Really interested to see how he plays on Saturday.
Awesome. G, we'll let you go. Get those interviews on the field. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be looking forward to having you back in here next week.
We don't want anybody.
Absolutely, perfect timing. They just let the media on the field, so we'll go do some work, and we'll see you later.
Sounds good. Gerhard joining us from Hancock Whitney Stadium ahead of the 2026 Panini Senior Bowl that kicks off in just about 2 days from now. Coming up next, we give you a round ball roundup of this midweek games, and especially last night's game. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, that Florida result was a little bit eye-opening. We'll talk about that and more after the break. Stay with us. Coming at you with another edition of Round Ball Roundup. This is Wednesday's action. Results from last night's games. Mississippi State pulling out that nice 80-66 win on the road against the LSU Tigers. Josh Hubbard with 15 points. Tennessee with a 86-85 win over the Georgia Bulldogs in overtime. We'll talk about that game a little bit more here in just a few seconds. Moving right along, Auburn with a unreal second half that we'll talk about with Noah Gross out of Austin, Texas, about here in just a few minutes as well. Keyshawn Hall dropped 31 points in the win, and I mean, you want to talk about a dominant win. Number 19 Florida dominates South Carolina 95-48. Now let's start with you could dive so many different directions with these games. Let's start with the Tennessee-Georgia game, and this one was just honestly one of the more entertaining games that we had seen all year. Jacoby Gillespie, we had been talking about for a while. He came over from Maryland. Obviously, had a really nice year with the Terrapins last year. Derek Queen ended up being a first-round pick out of Maryland last year. And it just seemed like Jacoby couldn't really get off to the start that he was hoping for with this Tennessee team. And it just seemed like, whatever was going on, Tennessee was just always looking for that secondary score. Well, I think they finally found it. And with, I'll talk about their secondary score here in a minute, but what Jacoby Gillespie has been able to do over these last 3 games, I think is exactly what Tennessee went out in the portal and got him for. He's averaging 23 points per game in his last 3 games. Tennessee is 2-3 over that stretch, and it took a miracle Kentucky comeback in order for, or else it would have been 3 straight wins for Tennessee. But what he was able to do, honestly, it has been a little bit surprising. But we had also been talking about Nate Ament all year, and it also seemed like, you know, a lot of scouts are projecting Ament to be a lottery pick in next year's draft. And I believe he scored 29 points in the big-time win over Alabama on Saturday. He followed it up with a 19-point performance, going 7 for 18 from the field, but he adds those 6 rebounds and dishes out 3 assists. This is that dynamic duo that we've been looking for if you're a Tennessee fan. I think I said yesterday, when Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie score 20-plus points, they're basically unbeatable. And while Ament scored 19, I'm big on rounding. You know, you can just round up 1. At this point, it's close enough. You can round up 1. I don't see how you can beat this Tennessee team when they both are on their game. And it took everything that Georgia had on their home floor to send it to overtime and everything. And Tennessee was able to edge out that 1-point win. And it was also a special victory for Tennessee head coach Rick Barnes. It is win number 850 after the 86-85 win in overtime. And Rick Barnes, we heard from him after the game.
You know, we came back from Alabama, had some good days' work, and really good team. And I mean, Mike does a great job, man. I'm telling you. And we just got our guys. I think they understand that at this level, if both teams play to their ability, there are going to be games like this every night. And if you don't play, you're going to get beat and get embarrassed. And but we got a long ways to go in some areas. But you know, I always use that saying, proud peacock today, feather duster tomorrow. You know, you feel good right now, but you can't enjoy it very long because you got to turn around. You got a really good Auburn team coming in, and then as good as you feel tonight, it can be over like that. So it's a matter of understanding you're in the grind of a college basketball season. I think with maybe 6 weeks to go, and this is where separation starts to happen, and we've got to keep getting better.
This is where the separation starts to happen. And I don't know what it is. He's just got that, talking about Rick Barnes, he's just got that special trait in his coaching abilities to be able to lead his teams. It seems like, you know, in the middle of January, they're ice cold. It seems like, you know, all right, we got to start thinking about baseball. But then he reels you back in, and it's just something about his coaching abilities. The teams just buy in 100%. And we're starting to see that now with this Tennessee team. It seems like they're starting to find their footing. They're starting to play into their roles. I know Coach Cal, we played the sound yesterday about how, you know, there's this bag of tricks that everyone wants to dive into. But it's when these guys start to find their roles on this team, and that's when this Tennessee team will really start to take off. As you mentioned, they've got Auburn this weekend. Auburn is riding high after 2 exhilarating wins, one over Florida and one over Texas last night. Let's flip over to the other side, on the Georgia side. And this has become a reoccurring issue for Santos Cerrillo. He just cannot seem to find himself out of foul trouble. And I think, you know, when you talk about pure ability, Santos Cerrillo has this impeccable shot blocking ability. It's one of his strong suits, and he's able to clean the glass so well. But when you just can't stay on the floor because you're in foul trouble, that severely limits how many shots you can block. So it's just becoming an issue here. He's got 2 straight games with 4+ fouls. He fouled out, I believe, 4 games ago, and then he also had the ejection earlier in the year against Florida, so we didn't really see what he was able to do. But we also heard from Mike White after the game talking about the loss.
I thought we fought today, really fought, proud of the effort. Had some plays there late, regulation. We had a 2-on-1. We had some free throw opportunities. They had some shots that they made. Amen's a handful, is getting better and better. 24-4 point paints, paint points is tough to overcome. 26 offensive rebounds. When you give that up, it's just tough to overcome. To the fact that we still had a chance in overtime, despite those numbers, show you that we were flying around and doing some good things.
So let's flip over to another game that was played last night, and this was Florida taking on South Carolina, and I talked about it a little bit. This was one of the most dominating games I have honestly seen this season. Florida scored 48 points in the first half. They needed to score one bucket in the second half, and they could have taken the rest of the half off. They could have honestly probably started the plane and head back to Gainesville. 95-48. And honestly, I was trying to find the last time this South Carolina team had gone through something like this, and I believe it was a long time ago. I don't remember the year, but they had a blowout loss up in Syracuse when it was then the Carrier Dome, and the Orange just blew them out the water. And I don't even know how to come up with words on what this actually was, because we had talked about this Florida team this past weekend. It was a tough loss against an Auburn team that came in, even though Tahad Pettiford is the only returning guy from last year's Final Four squad that actually had minutes. Obviously, Auburn was one of the oldest teams in the country last year, and they relied on that, and that's what got them to the Final Four. But I think they took that loss a little bit personal to Auburn this past weekend, because I think we talked with Mariah Ross yesterday. You do not want to be that team that comes after that plays South Carolina and Dawn Staley's South Carolina women's basketball team. You don't want to play them after a loss. You certainly do not want to play this Florida team after they're coming off a loss. I mean, Thomas Houck, I said before the year, I think he is actually going to project better than Alex Condon is and eventually take over that role. He didn't really have to do much. I mean, he scored 18 points, and it was an efficient 18 points, 7 of 12 shooting, 3 of 5 from beyond the arc. He had an assist and 3 rebounds, and also blocked a shot. You know, I just talked about Samto Surreal and his ability to block shots, but it's just, me as a competitor, I don't know how you can really come back from losing by, I believe, 47 points. I mean, you lost by double what you scored. So it's an unfortunate situation here, because, you know, I'm really rooting for Lamont Paris. I hope he finds, I hope he rights the ship down there in South Carolina. But we did get a chance to listen to him after the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We're trying it all. We're trying it all. We did respond well after the Arkansas game, and then we went on the road to play an Auburn team that's, you know, in that building obviously is really hard to beat, and we were right there as it got into the waning moments of the game with a chance to make a couple of plays to come out over the win. So I thought that was significant. I thought that would be the only time we were faced with that challenge, but I thought that was a significant response on in terms of identifying who this team was going to be moving forwards. And so, you know, all kinds of buttons. It's trying to figure out how guys respond and what they respond to, and it's different guys, and it's different things. You know, it's different things. I think we all know guys don't respond to things that they responded to 7 years ago.
I'm going to make a bold prediction here, going back over to the Florida side. And I know I talked about in my overreactions at the end of hour one that one of them was an unreal take in that they're going to go back to the Final Four. I think this team is refocused after the Auburn loss. And honestly, you know, a lot of questioning has been put on how good is Boogie Flan? Did Arkansas end up winning the quote-unquote Boogie Flan trade, where they're like, you know, yeah, you can go somewhere else. You can go wherever in the SEC because we've got Darius Acuff coming in, and honestly, he might be better than you. Is he better than him? I don't know. We need to see how this season pans out, but I think when you are able to rely on Thomas Houck and Alex Condon They are just a dynamic duo in the front court that can be unbeaten, that can't be beaten. And this team might not lose another game this season. They might, and they also might not. But I just think that this team is much more focused. They know that they can't just walk into any game and expect to win, because what they did against South Carolina, I mean, that's national championship contender stuff right there. All right, we have one more game to break down from last night, and it was one of the more entertaining ones, not just for basketball, but some chippiness also on the court. We'll go out to Austin, Texas, and check in with Noah Gross talking about this Texas-Auburn game from last night. Stay with us. Welcome back into Southeast Sports Plus, rolling right along here on this Thursday as we head out to Austin, Texas, and check in with Noah Gross. Noah, I mean, this was one of the more interesting matchups last night because this was an Auburn team coming off an exhilarating win over Florida in the Swamp, or excuse me, in Gainesville. I believe first win for the Tigers in Gainesville since 1996. And then this was a Texas team that was coming off a dominant second half performance against Georgia over the weekend. It seems like the roles reversed a little bit. What did you make of the Longhorns' performance last night?
Yeah, I was surprised how well Texas came out to play. And usually, and then I was more surprised they didn't win the game after that, because usually with this Texas team, you can tell pretty early how it's going to go. And the last game at home was an exception because they had that outstanding second half, but the first half was not very good. And again, this Texas team is such an enigma, as I feel like many in the SEC are, because they have like 3 out of 5 games they beat ranked teams, including a couple in the top 15, a couple of them at home, one on the road. So like they can clearly hang with pretty much most teams in the country. I think Arizona and some of those and that ilk would probably blow them out. But like, if they're facing Florida, if it's in Gainesville or Austin, on a good day, Texas would probably lose that game, definitely lose that game. But, like, it could be, a 5-point game with 4 minutes to go. Like, they're that caliber of team, and I give Sean Miller a ton of credit to that. However, his anger is just continuing to boil over, and that's despite some of the success. And, man, he's ripping these post-game quotes as of late. And last night, I know we were just talking about it, you had to blur one of them. Yeah. And that's understandable because he's so upset about this fouling. And, like, it's right away in these games. And this Texas team does not have a ton of depth. So when Modest Voikatitis and some of these guys behind him get in foul trouble, it just kind of spirals from there. You see on the graphic, Jordan Pope fouled out. And I think Auburn hit, like 22 free throws in the second half.
Second half, yeah.
Yeah, second half alone. And Sean Miller, you can listen to this soundbite online. I don't think we're legally allowed to play it here, but it was certainly
we like to stay on the air.
Patrick. Yeah, it was bad, and I understand the frustration from him, but yeah, I mean that's the main issue with this Texas team right now.
So I mean, as a former competitor, obviously you had the 20-point win against Georgia. And then you follow it up with a game that you thought you had won in the first half, and then just, I don't even know, it just goes off the rails in the second half. I mean, how do you come back from this and say, we just got to put our best foot forward and still try to make a run at this tournament?
That's one thing this team, I think, is certainly a strength of this team. Is like, every team preaches the 24-hour rule. No matter how good the win, no matter how bad the loss, you have it with you for one day. That's been the case for Texas because, man, their first two SEC games were so bad. So bad. Like, they looked like the worst team in the SEC. The way they choked against Mississippi State, and then the way they just got demolished on the road against Tennessee, who struggled in the SEC as well. And then they come back from that and win on the road at Alabama, a team that, yes, was a bit injured, but that team in that place, that's an incredible win. You come home, you beat a previously unbeaten Vanderbilt team. So they can kind of shake those things up. And they had a bad loss again and then came home and beat a ranked Georgia team. So it's the highs and lows of this team, and we're kind of figuring out what like a Sean Miller team is like. And I don't think it's as much him as it is this roster that's – we've been talking since the beginning of the season, Patrick, about how good can this team be. And the guy you just saw in the picture right there, Jordan Pope, I've been calling microwave for a while because he has a night like last night where he fouled out, wasn't that good, and had some kind of boneheaded plays. And then he has nights where he drops 30+ and he's so good and things like that. And then Tremont Mark as well. And then they just had a couple of disappointments on the roster, man. Like Simeon Welcher has just been a nothing burger for this team. He had like a play last night on an inbound where he was clearly looking at Tremont Mark, somebody that I've gone on a few times, but it was not his fault. And he just looked away for half a second for no reason. Tremont inbounded the ball. Simeon wasn't looking, to went right past him. Auburn got it, and they immediately drew a foul. So plays like that and just holding this team back. Yeah. They just don't have the depth to deal with some of the things they're dealing with right now.
And, I mean, looking ahead, because as you mentioned, a lot of teams have that 24-hour rule. They have Oklahoma up next. So you're pretty confident that they can bounce back, even though it is a rivalry game, and Oklahoma is still looking for their first win since the SEC opener against Ole Miss?
Yes. So just looking at the schedule right now in the SEC, it was so difficult for Texas to start.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it was a gauntlet, of course, on the road against some incredible teams, but it certainly eases up a little bit. I think there's 3 teams below Texas in the conference standings at this point of the season: South Carolina, LSU, and Oklahoma. Excuse me. All 3 of those teams appear on Texas's schedule in the next 5 games. That's good. They also face Missouri and Ole Miss, which are 2 of the teams just above them. The only one they're not really facing at the bottom is Mississippi State, a team they already played. So the schedule eases up a little bit. You see where Texas is right now, 12-9 overall, 3-5 in the SEC. You kind of start to think, Patrick, and I'm sure you've had these discussions as somebody that looks at the SEC overarching is like, how many wins do you need in the conference to make the SEC tournament?
Right.
I think Texas, who's 2 games under 500 right now, in this next stretch could get back to 6-6. Is that unreasonable? And if you're there, to me, you're almost a tournament lock. Because I don't know, is it 8-9 wins? I don't know off the top of my head how many Texas had last year. I think it was they were clearly under 500, and they made it as a first 4 team. And the SEC might not be what it was last year, but I think they were in a really good spot despite the loss because of the way the schedule kind of unfolds in front of them in the next week or so.
They went 6-12 last year, both of them in Oklahoma.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and they had some really good wins in the SEC tournament, but if you can get 7-8, which I think they can do this year, I think they should pretty safely be in.
So, I mean, looking ahead at the tournament as a whole, I believe the last time I checked, they were kind of on that edge. That they were definitely on the bubble, either in the last 4 in or first 4 out.
They're the last team in.
They are the last team in.
That was before the loss last night, though.
Okay.
I think that was according to ESPN.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think at this point, if you're looking at the tournament, you've got to win. You got to win against Oklahoma. You got to win against South Carolina. You got to get a win against Ole Miss. You would like to get a win against Missouri. Let's flip over to the women's side because there was a little bit of an interesting situation, unfortunately, because of the weather from this past weekend. They did not actually play a game. I talked with Roger a little bit on Monday about how you have this extended layoff. Are you a little bit concerned that, they might come out sloppy in this game against Florida, or do you think they're going to be amped up, ready to go?
I mean, I think they'll be pretty amped up, but yet they've done that before where they not look themselves after a big layoff or after a big, road swing or something like that. So, yeah, it's been 10, 12 days since their last game. So, yeah, I could certainly see that. was the rest possibly good for this team, who just came off a pretty tough stretch beforehand that included like at LSU and at South Carolina in week? Probably, but it's still early enough in the season where like you maybe want that open date that they had against Arkansas later, and now it's going to be facing the Razorbacks, where they, like I said, originally had that open date. But no, Texas should get back in the win column tonight, and I think Texas basketball fans should be excited because, man, it's such a Jekyll and Hyde men's team that they're like, I just need some stability. And, you know, the women's team has had a couple games where it's like not the best, but even in those games, they still win by like 12, 15 points. So, yeah, I think the women's team, it's not a threat, Florida, tonight to beat them, but it'll be interesting to see how they start and how consistent they are through 40 minutes.
They're at number 4 right now in the most recent poll. Obviously, they have Florida tonight, but the complete opposite of the men's team. They have a gauntlet coming up, and I believe this is also where Vic Schaefer gets into his vendetta and stuff. But the good news is, I mean, you get Oklahoma at home, you get LSU at home, you get Kentucky at home. Do you see any slip-ups in the near future for this Texas team?
They've been so good at home, man. Yeah. And they've been a different team. That player in the graphic, Madison Booker, I think especially has been different at home. It just like, you can just tell how confident she is in her home arena, right, and how much that's not the case often away from home, especially in some of those big games, like the way they beat LSU and South Carolina at home last year. So I could certainly see them losing one of those games. Vanderbilt, ironically, is one of the teams that does not scare me that much because I think we saw what happened when they faced one of the best teams in the country earlier, and they do have one of their key players that was at Texas last year, so Vic Schaefer knows Jack Alengo Wenentondo well. But the three of those, all of those at home, that stretch is pretty incredible. And, yeah, I'm sure Vic will be providing some like press conference gold. I mean, he usually does, but just these complaints as of late have been outstanding. So, yeah, it is quite the stretch, but like everybody's facing these teams, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's not personal against you, I don't think. Maybe in football they do some stuff like that, but I don't think in basketball they're like, oh, let's schedule this for any of these teams.
I mean, when you set a record for 10 teams ranked in the top 25 out of one conference, I mean, it's hard to say that you have a vendetta. I'd be interested to see what Curt Cignetti has to say about vendetta for next year, because the Big Ten schedule was just released, I believe, yesterday, and he gets Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back next year.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, that stuff might happen in football. Yeah. So you win the national championship, you get the national champion schedule. So I don't feel bad for Curt. He's doing just fine.
You know, it wouldn't be a Noah Gross segment without talking about the Big Ten. Do you have any confidence at all about this game? Because, I mean, Purdue looks kind of beatable right now. They've lost the last 3. Maybe Maryland could pull off the upset.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, obviously they're not going to win the basketball game. But I will say on this SEC show, I feel like A&M fans should love having me on, because think about how much joy it brings them to see just deflated, angry Maryland fan that is just seeing what the Buzz Williams experience really is, which is just flailing, a team that has no identity, zero vision, zero passion, and just has no hope right now. And they got a good recruiting class, but, you know, you can only cling on to that for so long. And it is just, he has sucked all the life out of that program from last year. So, yeah, Aggies should be happy that like I'm on right now complaining about Maryland basketball.
Yeah, and I know I'm pretty sure that we have some Aggie viewers over there in the College Station area.
For sure.
Does it kind of hurt you to see what Jacoby Gillespie is starting to do for this Tennessee team?
Of course it hurts me. Are you kidding me? He was incredible. I mean, he was at Belmont before Maryland, so it is kind of interesting to see how these guys that Gillespie's one of the best players in the country now, man. And like he was starting at Belmont for a couple of years. Right. So it's probably cool from their perspective, like, oh, he started at Belmont. But from a Maryland perspective, I'm like, there should be guys transferring from Maryland. He was so awesome for that team. Yeah, what a disaster it's turned into. I mean, they have guys all over now. Rodney Rice at USC, who's fought through some injuries as well.
Tennessee tried to get him. Didn't work.
Yes. I mean, they would have been a heck of a backcourt. They had that in Maryland. And, yeah, I just also quickly want to add, last year, if there's any Florida fans watching, obviously that magical run to the national championship, the Sweet 16 game against Maryland, it's remarkable to me how not close that game was. That Maryland team was so stacked, and it
Yeah.
just, that Florida team was incredible. And just as someone that watched that Maryland team all year, they never looked like that against anybody. Yes, they had the distraction of Willard and everything, but man, how special was that Florida team last year to be able to just manhandle so many of those good programs in the NCAA tournament?
And I mean, we're just seeing it this year because they returned that national championship winning front court, but it also goes to show you how important a backcourt is, because we've seen Boogie Flan. We don't really know what to expect when it becomes crunch time and your season's on the line. And the same thing with Xavier Lee. Wasn't Maryland, real quick before I let you go, wasn't Maryland coming off that Derek Queen buzzer beater too?
Yes. Yeah. And it was perfect because I was so ready. I'm like, man, they haven't been to the Sweet 16 in like 10 years. Like, I'm just going to enjoy this. And like, I just want like that 4-day lead up where I'm just like, I'm happy. But then it was all like the Willard drama of leaving, not leaving, lying, and all this stuff. And then they just get rocked by Florida.
Yeah. A little bit unfortunate. But hopefully, the Maryland baseball team can maybe, will your Terrapin fandom back up,
I got no hope.
He's got no hope for anything. Noah, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on today.
All right, Patrick. All right, talk soon. Go Terps. Be well.
Noah Gross, never unapologetic Maryland fan, even when times are tough. I'm sure Texas A&M fans will like to hear him talking about Buzz Williams there. But Texas going to look to rebound against Oklahoma after that tough loss last night on the Plains. Coming up next, we wrap up this week's show of Southeast Sports Plus, do a little bit of predictions moving into this weekend's games and talk about those games. Stay with us. Closing up this Thursday edition of Southeast Sports Plus, let's take a look at some of this weekend's games in and around the SEC. These will be the Saturday-only games. Florida and Alabama will tip off on Sunday. So at noon, the Texas A&M Aggies will take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Buckyball looking to head over to Athens. Potentially, if they pick up a win, could they be ranked next season or next week? We'll see. Obviously, they have to come out with a win there in that one. Texas will face Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Obviously, Texas took home the win in the football matchup this season at the Cotton Bowl. And then Mississippi State will travel up to Missouri at 2:30 to take on the Missouri Tigers. And then LSU and South Carolina both coming off home losses, look to rebound at 5 o'clock. And then moving right along here, Kentucky will travel down to Bud Walton Arena and take on Coach Cal for the second time since Coach Cal left the Kentucky program. That tip-off is set for 5:30. And this is an interesting one. Ole Miss will take on Vanderbilt. This game was originally supposed to be played in Oxford, but due to the ice storm, they're actually going to play the game in Oxford later on in the season and move this game to Nashville. So Vanderbilt will have a home game this weekend. And then wrapping it up on Saturday will be the Auburn Tigers facing the Tennessee Volunteers. And I know I did not put the Florida the Florida Alabama game in there, but we'll also have that one as a bonus one for our weekly predictions that we like to do right around 3:56 here on this program. So this will be the Saturday games, and then I'll add the bonus one with the Alabama-Florida game at the end. Texas A&M taking on Georgia. There's no lines on any of these games yet. I think when I take a look at this game, obviously it was a tough game for Georgia this past weekend. Going into the Moody Center, where I still think, bad things just happen there. I mean, just take a look at Texas A&M. They hadn't won there since it was built, and they hadn't won in Austin in a long time, and Bucky McMillan was able to do that. So, I mean, you got to give him props. But for Georgia to come back against Tennessee and suffer another close this one was a close loss in overtime last night, that's got to hurt. And I still think Bucky McMillan the first time he plays these teams, they think they know what buckyball is, but they don't actually know until they play. So that's why I think Texas A&M is going to pick up the win this weekend over Georgia on the road. Bucky McMillan and the Texas A&M Aggies will be ranked come Monday. Texas at Oklahoma. This is another interesting one because, Oklahoma is looking for their first win since the SEC opener against Ole Miss earlier this month. And Texas is coming off that tough road loss last night, as we just talked about, with Noah Gross to Auburn. But they had that 20-point win against Georgia at home. They're going to stay on the road, even though it's a lot closer to home. I think Texas ends up winning this game. I just haven't seen enough out of this Oklahoma team to warrant anything, that they can be consistent. And it was a tough loss to Mizzou over the weekend. They had the 2 buzzer beaters. Mark Mitchell ended up winning the game in overtime with a buzzer beater 3, and it definitely hurt this Oklahoma team. But they're going to rebound at some point. I just don't expect them to come up and be able to knock off this Texas team. I think Texas bounces back. They're going to be committed now if they want to make this tournament. Kentucky at number 15, Arkansas. The first game that Kentucky will go to Bud Walton Arena without Coach Calipari. I think Arkansas gets the win here. I don't know if I've seen enough. I know Kentucky had that 5-game win streak. But if you take a look at the games that they played, they went down by 18 to LSU. They did end up coming back and winning. And then they went down by a lot again, came back and won against Tennessee. So it's just, at some point, you just can't rely on the second half comebacks. And I think a lot of us said that about the Denver Broncos this year. You were always waiting until the fourth quarter, and then Denver, I believe, had a plus 135 point differential in the final quarter or something crazy like that. You just cannot rely on that. I think Arkansas comes out. They're going to be motivated. Darius Acuff is going to have a nice game. But as Courtney Mims has said on this program a lot, it's going to be those seniors and juniors and some of the older guys that really need to step up for this team. But I am pretty confident that they'll get it done. Ole Miss at Vanderbilt. This one, obviously, very unfortunate with the whole news around the weather this weekend. And obviously, I hope everything in Oxford gets better soon. I do believe Vanderbilt gets this win. Mark Byington, he came out, and the Commodores made a statement this week against Kentucky. So I believe that Tyler Tanner has a nice night, and they end up winning there. Auburn at Tennessee. Another interesting matchup. It could go either way. Auburn is riding high right now. Are they going to win? I don't know. But actually, I'm going to go with Tennessee Volunteers, because it seems like Rick Barnes coached teams just get better as the season goes on. And I told you I had one extra one. Alabama taking on Florida. Give me the Crimson Tide. Charles Bediako, he makes his impact. Thanks for watching this week. We'll be back on Monday with more Southeast Sports Plus. Thank you.